Welcome back to another episode of the Pop Culture Abstract Podcast. This is Jay, and this week I talked with Craig Mish. He's a baseball reporter for SiriusXM Radio. He's been all over Twitter the last couple weeks because he's been one of the main driving factors in the Giancarlo Stanton trade rumors. He talked with me for a little bit about how he got into baseball reporting, a little bit on Stanton from the Cardinals' point of view, and then a little bit on some of the other stuff the Cardinals could do this offseason. So how'd you get into your baseball career?
Well, baseball's always been a passion of mine. I grew up very early age going to spring training games in Pompano and West Palm Beach and in Miami, and kind of took an interest in baseball cards, I think, like most people do. I think that's like the gateway to baseball. And, and then just through being in the media, learned how to report on things and also learned how to cover different teams. I think my first real experience of doing interviews with players came almost right when I was out of college. I was working at a station in Sarasota, Florida, and the Pittsburgh Pirates trained in Bradenton, Florida, and they couldn't, for whatever reason, send a reporter down. And so they asked me to fill in for the reporter and go into the Pittsburgh Pirates clubhouse at that time in Bradenton, and it's called Pirate City. And I really didn't know a lot about how to do long-form interviews. I kind of had a little bit of an idea because I did go to college and interviewed players in football at the University of Florida, and baseball and basketball, and covered all the teams in high school sports too, but this was a little bit different. And the PR person at the time, and still is, believe it or not, for I think 25 years, 30 years, Jim Tradinich, kind of showed me the ropes and taught me how to properly ask questions, answer them, how to request different players, and it just kind of all started from there. And so my career at that point just went all different kinds of places, both in TV and radio, and now I've been with SiriusXM for the last 8 years. But that was really my first experience in interviewing and speaking to players on a one-on-one basis extensively, that first experience with the Pirates.
So I got to ask, you mentioned baseball cards. What was that first set that got you into it?
I remember I had cards from the 78 Topps set. Those were the first packs that I was opening, and I had moved from New York to South Florida. And then for some reason, I kind of think of it like this. In 78, I know that I collected cards, and I collected baseball cards. In 79 and 80, I didn't have anything. And then my collection from 81 on was incredible. So I went back and bought old cards and everything like that. But I think really where, for me, the baseball card era hit its peak and also its valley was in 86 and 87, because those years produced, and maybe even 85, but 86 and 87 produced some incredible rookie cards that we all thought were going to be worth so much money. I think in 85, it was McGuire, 86, it was, and on that Olympic card, and then 86, it was Canseco and Barry Bonds and Barry Larkin, and also Bo Jackson was in that 86 Topps traded set. And then 87 had all of those cards also. It just wasn't their traded card. It was their regular card. And then, unfortunately, they produced so many of those cards that they didn't end up being worth anything. My father and I actually used to go to local shows and sell cards. I remember we had the Greg Jeffries rookie card in 88, the 88 Donruss.
Yeah.
And then, I got older and I went to college and I kind of got out of it. I still have thousands and thousands and thousands of the cards that I had when I was a kid, but they're not really worth what I thought they were going to end up being. But I do have a few nice ones. I have a Ken Griffey Jr., or I have a couple Ken Griffey Jr. PSA 10 from his 89 Upper Deck rookie. I have that. I have George Brett's rookie. I have Reggie Jackson's rookie. So I still have hung on to some of the better ones, but really it turned out to be an investment in futility. That's funny.
Yeah. I started in 85. I got that 85 Topps set, and that had Kirby Puckett's rookie and Roger Clemens' rookie in it too.
Right, and Doc Gooden also in 85 too. Brett Saberhagen.
Yeah.
I think Saberhagen may have been his traded card in '85. I'm not sure, but I was really, really active in those years with cards for sure.
Yeah. So I know it's a busy time for you with following the Stanton deal. What's a normal day for you like right now? I mean, I know you're traveling.
No, not really. I'm in South Florida right now,
Hmm.
and today I volunteered at my son's school for from about 8 till 1 o'clock. He's in kindergarten at a local school here, and my once a year volunteer was today. So, but in between then, this with the story, it's just something I'm doing on my own. It's not something that somebody's paying me to do right now. I've just totally taken this on my own to try and see if I can, report on the story accurately and break the story. If that ends up happening, that would be great too. But that's kind of it. And so I'm doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, is I'm watching and I'm keeping an eye on things, and I have sources that have to this point I think delivered some great information. And anytime I get it, I try and report it, or at least cross check it several times, and I continue to do that. And that's the process of doing it. It is a little consuming. It's probably not something in my mind that I would love to do for a living. I give those guys who do it a lot of credit. Like, the pressure that they must have to break stories is incredible. And if you look at my track record as far as what I've done, I've broken stories here and there in baseball, and I like it. I appreciate it, but I knew this was a big one.
Yeah.
So after this is done, yeah, I'll probably break a story here and there, but never like the national writers and the guys who have all the respect, like Ken Rosenthal and John Morosi and John Heyman and those guys. Like, I don't put myself in their category, but locally, I think I hold my own in terms of information.
All right. So we know that you've reported that Stanton has been, or the centerpiece for Stanton has been Alcantara. Have you heard any other names? I know Waka and Jose Martinez have been floated out there.
You mean with the Cardinals you're
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, from the Cardinals side.
Yeah, from the Cardinals side, that's it. That's all I have heard at this point. I haven't heard any other names, and I saw the same report that you did, and certainly for John Morosi to put that out. Um, yeah, I don't. See, the thing that I don't do is I take the high road with this. If anybody says something that's negative, or they say I'm not right or I'm not wrong, like, that's fine. Like, it's part of the business, and I don't care. So I'm not gonna debunk anyone. Everyone has good sources, everyone has good information, but I have my own as well, and I stick to it. The only name that I've heard so far is Alcantara in the deal, and that's it. I haven't heard of any other names yet. Hopefully I will, but that's the only name that I've heard so far, so that's all I've reported.
All right, and so no new money on how much the Cardinals are willing to chip in for the salary?
Nope, just more than the Giants. That's it.
All right. So, I know you've said that there's no chance that he stays with the Marlins. I mean, is that something that has been explored, at least, about maybe waiting a season and seeing if they could work on a trade with the Dodgers next year?
I've heard that. I've heard that reporting. My strong opinion on that is there's no chance of that happening. I just don't see it. Um, there's every plausible scenario that can be played out with this, and we're all kind of in the dark. So it's been a firm opinion of mine, and is as close to as fact as I could get without giving a fact, that the idea that he would come back to South Florida is, to me, a zero. The Marlins have more pressure on them than Stanton does. They have to move the contract. They can't. There was a report a couple of weeks ago from Clark Spencer of the Herald, and Clark does a really good job too. And maybe the Marlins are thinking that they could apply some pressure to this, and certainly that is an option. But I don't think it's a realistic option to trade everybody else around Stan to make it work. I don't think there is, so I'm going to say no. I do not believe there's any chance of him coming back.
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard for them to field a team with him and then bare minimum salary.
I mean, they could, but I mean, do you really want 6 months of an absolutely miserable player in a miserable situation? It just seems unthinkable to me that they would go to spring training and day-to-day operations of him being on a team with no. It has not. It's crossed my mind because people have brought it up. It just does not seem realistic at all to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So the new rumor I've seen today is he's requesting the Giants and Cardinals to move his opt-out up a year, so it'd be after the 2019 season. Have you heard anything about that?
I have not. It's definitely an interesting scenario, and I don't know where it came from. But again, I'm not here to say that anybody is right or wrong with their reporting. I don't do that. But that's definitely an interesting scenario, and if proposed, it would seem to be Logical if that's what Stanton is choosing. If he's really not sold, it does give him the opportunity in 2 years to leave, and if things go well, then he could stay. But I haven't heard that personally.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was interesting because it might move him to the Dodgers a little bit quicker. I think that would be the only reason he would even opt out of the contract. Would you agree with that?
To the Dodgers?
Yeah.
For an opt?
Well,
you mean after the 2
yeah,
years?
after he opt out, yeah.
Yeah, if that's what he chooses. I mean, look, I always go back to LeBron James. Like when LeBron James signed with the Heat, didn't expect it. When he left the Heat, didn't expect it. I don't put my foot on the ground or in the sand saying, "Hey, this is a guarantee of anything." It's sports, man. Guys change their mind. Things change. These deals have changed a lot since a week or 2 weeks ago. So. Yeah, he could conceivably do that if that's what he wants to do. I believe he wants to be in a place long term, but if he chooses to alter the deal and say, hey, 2 years St. Louis or 2 years San Francisco, and then we'll see where we're at, that's a calculated risk on both ends, I would think. Seems like fair for both sides. But I just haven't heard it. It sounds like a good scenario, though.
I mean, do you see him the only reason he would opt out would be to go to the Dodgers? I mean, that would be a lot of money to leave on the table, and it'd be hard for him to get that same amount of money on the open market, wouldn't you think?
Oh, well, not necessarily, because he would be only 29 or 30 at that time, and we've seen some astronomical contracts come in with players who were above 30. And if Stanton hits 50-plus home runs the next 2 years, I don't think it's unrealistic. I think Machado and Harper are both going to get contracts that will exceed Stanton's. So, and Kershaw, by the way, if he opts out. So, not impossible to me, but you're right. Stanton would have to be healthy, and he would have to produce like he did this past year and not previously, because previously he produced, but he kept getting hurt. Freakish injuries, not his fault, but it is what it is at the end of the day. You look at the numbers, but if he produces 50-plus home runs for whoever in St. Louis or San Francisco for the next 2 years, 100 home runs, 200 runs driven in, OPS of, leading the league close to it, I mean, you'd have to think that there is that chance that he would opt out.
Yeah. So what do you think of the late value of that contract? I mean, at age 35, he's going to be making $32 million. I mean, is the team really going to want to pay that much for Stan at that point of the career? Or are they just going to be willing to eat it because they need a player like him now?
Yeah, track record tells you that teams will do the deal. They know that the back end of the contract is going to look bad, so they're willing to do it for the present as opposed to the future. And it's the time and time again, Alex Rodriguez, Miguel Cabrera, Ryan Howard, these contracts Albert Pujols, these contracts are not going to look good the last 3 or 4 years. But if it gets you a World Series in the first 3 or 4, then it was worth it. And I think that's the way the teams are approaching.
Yeah. So another thing for maybe later in the career, as Stan, quite possibly with the injury risk that he poses, would he be an option at first base? I'm not 100% familiar with his defense right now, but is that something you could see down the line?
He could, or designated hitter, but he's still young. He's still 27.
Right.
So that's not something for me that I think is addressed now, but in 5 years, yeah. I mean, I could see that being realistic, but he may not be a Gold Glove winner, but he's not below average to me. I watch him play in the outfield in Miami, and he seems to do a pretty good job. I mean, look, I don't have the analytics to show it or prove it, but I wouldn't say that he is below average at this point. That could change quickly. He's a big guy. 2-3 years, that could change. But as of right now, I would think 150 games in the outfield this year.
Okay, so if the Cardinals miss out on Stan, what other options do you think they might look into? I mean, we always hear J.D. Martinez, Eric Hosmer possibly. Is there anyone else that you think would be a good fit for them?
I mean, for me, I don't think they'll be in on J.D. Martinez, but again, this is completely speculative. For me, Hosmer is not. I don't think that Hosmer in the middle of a lineup is a game changer. I think he's a very good player with very good defense. That will go around some other players. Stanton is a game changer, and I'm thinking of when in this league with everybody hitting 30 home runs and more. Like I just don't see Hosmer being that guy. He's very good. Don't get me wrong, and I think that going to a good team is going to make that team a lot better. But the kind of game changer to me would be on the other side. Like Moustakas is the kind of guy that if I'm the Cardinals, in terms of free agents, I put him at third and Matt Carpenter at first, and all of a sudden Moustakas batting cleanup or third is hitting 30 home runs in that park. Kansas City's not an easy place to hit, so I think, for me, I think that's the guy that I would chase. And then, of course, you could go right back to Miami and Marcell Ozuna in left field for the Cardinals. If they were able to pull that off, you're looking at a 30 home run bat, third cleanup in the Cardinals lineup, plays pretty good defense too. At first blush, those are kind of the names that I think that they would attack. But strange things happen. Trades are made, and who knows? Maybe the Cardinals have somebody else in mind that I'm not aware of.
Yeah. Out of Ozuna and Yelich, which one would be the better fit for the Cardinals?
I don't think the Cardinals are afraid of spending money, and I think that's been pretty apparent. Yeah, I think Ozuna is the better fit because the Cardinals are always poised to win right now. Yelich is a very good player, all-star caliber player. He took a little bit of a step back last year, I thought, and Ozuna took a big step up. So, and Ozuna's chasing a contract too. So I would think for the next 2 years, Ozuna would be the one that I would want to fit that team in St. Louis. Like they are just, to me, desperate for somebody to take that Holiday role that Holiday had a couple of years ago when he was so good with the Cardinals. 30 home runs, very significant OPS. Like that is the kind of guy that I'm looking for, and I think Ozuna is like more or less the same. He could be. So to me, that would be the better fit, and his defense wouldn't be necessarily as good as Yelich's, but the Cardinals were preaching all of this defense this past year, and that didn't work out. So. Really, when you think about it, the best free agent the Cardinals may have gotten is getting Jose Oquendo back because you would think immediately their defense will be better.
Yeah, and that's a big thing they need to address. And while Hosmer would be a good fit, I think, I worry that he's not that bat they need because they have a lot of good bats, but they don't have that great, next-tier bat.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys that are the same, and they've been kicking the tires on that. Jerko 2 years ago had a phenomenal year. They had tried to bring in Brandon Moss. And, he played up and down a little bit, and their outfielders are all kind of more or less the same. I thought Piscotty would take a step ahead. He took a step back. DeYoung all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, like Diaz came out of nowhere. It's just so – and then Pham, who I had no expectations for, was arguably their best offensive player. So they definitely need to upgrade something offensively. I would be hard-pressed in thinking that Pham and DeYoung are going to do exactly what they did last year. If they did, then those two are all-stars, that's for sure.
Yeah, DeYoung's the one that scares me because he's got that strikeout rate that's so high, and he doesn't walk very often, and those players tend to struggle long-term in the majors.
Yeah, and Diaz, who I liked a lot, I was really surprised that Diaz did not progress this year, and I think his offense took a step back because he was so worried about his defense. He is one of my favorite people, Aledmys Diaz, such a nice person, and I was so disappointed to see the year that he had last year. I really hope for him it works out in Toronto, and he's clearly not a fit anymore with the Cardinals, but somebody that I really like a lot, and I just want to say that.
All right, so one last thing. The Cardinals just signed Miles Mikolas to a 2-year deal. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean,
not really. Okay. No. Nothing that's going to shake the world. Everything that's going to shake the world is going to happen in the next 2 weeks, I think, and hopefully once the Stan deal is done, we'll be able to move on.
Yeah, I've been reading some people think this might be a precursor to move one of the pitchers in the rotation right now, but it could just be a depth move too.
Yeah, I don't see it being very much. Look, the Cardinals rotation next year is going to have Carlos Martinez in it. We assume that. It's going to have Luke Weaver in it, I believe. So that's the second one. It'll have Adam Wainwright in it, I believe, and Wainwright will bounce back. So, I mean, we hope he bounces back, right? So that'll be their 3. Who am I missing here? Alex Reyes, coming off Tommy John surgery, certainly will be ready. I don't know that he's ready to pitch 200 innings, so that would be 4. Jack
Weaver.
Flaherty, right? Jack Flaherty would be an option at the back end of the rotation. He pitched a little bit with the Cardinals last year, and then I know Lynn is probably going to be gone. So who am I missing? Am I missing anyone or not?
Waka and Weaver.
Yeah, I mentioned Weaver. Okay. So Waka, if he's on the team and that report it doesn't come true, then Waka probably would be in the rotation too as their 5. But then they have other guys in the minors, right? They have Gomber in the minors.
Dakota Hudson.
Yeah, they have, right, yeah. So I think, Dakota Hudson, right. So I think they're fine. And listen, if they don't get the Marlins deal done, they have Alcantara eventually to start too. So very stacked at that position. Great position to be if you're the Cardinals, having all those pitchers.
Yeah. So if my listeners want to follow you, where can they find you?
On Twitter, at Craig Mish. That's it. At Craig Mish for now. January the 8th, I'll be back on the air on SiriusXM. Me and Jim Bowden host a show every day, 9 to 11, from Monday through Thursday, and then Cliff Floyd on Fridays. And this is my 8th year doing the show. Very excited to do it, and I appreciate you having me.
No, not a problem. Thanks for joining me. Please go to popcultureabstract.com to check out my writing, the social media links, and links to Google Play and iTunes so you can subscribe to the show and rate and review us. A few other links to check out: ijov.net, the Inside Joke Outside Voice Podcast Network. You'll find other great podcasts there. Also check out Podcast Land. They do a monthly voting for Podcast of the Month, and you can search for Pop Culture Abstract there and vote for it. You get 5 votes a month. The intro music was Social Damage by the band The Euclids. This week's music is from the MurderBurgers, and it's their song, The Waves.
Do you worry when you think about the things that you are? With us in our hospital beds, all long-term plans and cut short instead. The only long-term things we have are loneliness and stress. Cause insanity's and preferential is getting old, and thinking that we never helped anyone, or at least that's what I'm told. The ones that I love, struggling to keep their heads above the waves that would drown me every time, if they were there to pull me out. Dear Chris, to be born for this.